this infrastructure project to higher heights. So that's why we're here. This is going to be a year-long conversation of how we do this, how we include mitigations, how we take aesthetics, how we take workforce and meld them into a vision of what this program could be. So that's my bit of inspiration for today of why we are here. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Coach.
And then we'd love to turn it over to the mayor and the commissioner to offer.
Mayor, it's your shot.
Oh,
Would you like to start or shall I?
go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Mengus Maps. I am commissioner on the Portland City Council right across the river. I am delighted to be here with my good friend Mayor Ann today in the beautiful city of Vancouver. Over at City Hall, I'm the commissioner in charge of transportation and basically public infrastructure. So I very much appreciate being a part of this conversation. I want to say, at least from the Portland side, this project is incredibly exciting to us. I will tell you, this is one of, if not the biggest infrastructure project that's come along in Portland in a long, long time. I feel incredibly privileged to actually be at this table with a group of people around us so that we can get this right. You know, after we get this bridge built, we will make important contributions to our economy and for our local resiliency. But as we just heard, you know, there's going to be a tough decade when we're going to be kicking up a lot of dust and making a lot of noise. And doing everything that we can to make sure that we work with our partners on this side of the river and on that side of the river to make sure that this is the best experience that we can be is I think some of the important work and some of the contributions that I can make to this conversation. I'll tell you, as we also develop our mitigation plans, one of the things I'll be doing from the city side is looking for opportunities to leverage some of the things that I hope that we can recommend and get put on the table. So if there's land that at the end we don't need anymore for the project that can be converted into a park that the city can maintain, stuff like that. I don't know. We will learn what's possible soon. But that's one of the things that I'll be thinking about. And mostly I'll be thinking about following Mayor Ann's lead. She is the real pro in the room. And probably, I would say that I can't imagine anywhere, I think this is literally true. I don't think there's anyone, the state of Washington or the state of Oregon, who had a bigger role in terms of getting this thing across the finish line than Mayor Ann. So thank you, Mayor Ann. You have been a real service to this generation of Portlanders or Northwesterners, and that bridge is going to be here for 100 years.
And if you have any extra land, we're looking at annexation.
Oh, well, it's
Well, good afternoon. I'm Ann McInerney-Ogle, and if we have nothing else, we know we're going to work well together for an entire year. So please, let's just call each other by our first names instead of trying to figure out what Greg's title is every single time. So welcome to a very focused, meaningful opportunity.
Yep.
I've never done this before. Community benefits on $6 billion.
I have not done this either.
Oh, okay, this will be fun.
It will be historic.
And we're looking forward to getting something done, mitigating the impacts of the construction, as you said, 5, 7, 10 years for our residents and businesses. So let's get going. Janelle, Shannon?
Awesome. So I'm actually going to add just a check-in question. So we're going to focus our introduction on committee members and staff to the committee. And then in addition to your name, pronouns, if you choose, I'd like to also have you share a little bit about what lenses you're bringing into this room. So we'll give you all some time to add that to your introductions as well. I'll start as an example. I'm Shannon Singleton. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the lead on community benefits work for the IBR program. The lenses I bring into this room, I come from housing and homelessness work, so I'm always bringing that lens on how can we increase affordable housing stock, ensure some of our lowest income folks have access to good paying jobs. And also as a Black woman, I'm coming into this space, bringing all of that lens with me and ensuring that we're centering Black and brown communities who have been historically harmed by transportation projects, and ensuring we're keeping our voices and our people front and center. And I will hand it to you.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. John O'Bell, Principal Acting Officer for the IBR program, and the lens I'm bringing right now is like an IT person. So what do they say? Planning is everything, plans are nothing. So never fails. But in addition to kind of the equity construct, which a lot of this work is built on, right? How do we really operationalize the great work that ESG and EAG really did when they directed the program to really operationalize equity? I have family on both sides of the river, and I think Mayor, you put it best. How do we really leverage this $6 billion investment to ensure that we really have long-standing community benefits? And so, really excited in this conversation, and thank you all for being willing to be on this journey. It's never been done with a mega project before, so this is pretty exciting.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Aiden Gronauer, and I'm the Civil Rights and Equity Manager for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. So very excited to be here with you all of you on this new undertaking of community benefits for this large project. So working in civil rights and diversity, equity, inclusion, also my own lived experiences, I do bring the lens of looking at not only the economic opportunities for our minority and women-owned businesses, but also the workforce there. And then also I do have some housing, affordable housing in my background as well, but I'm definitely bringing that lens as that seems to be a topic of concern here in the area. So thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cynthia Castro. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the new Deputy Chief of Staff for Commissioner Maps. This is day 3 for me. So nice to meet you all, jumping right in as we do in government. So, and I will be the liaison to PBOT and just, obviously I'm here to support the commissioner in this work. But just so you know, coming from Multnomah County most recently, where I worked with Commissioner Myron, a lot on homelessness, behavioral health work, equity work. Previously was at the city of Portland, working for Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Fritz, and Portland Parks and Recreation. So a lot of direct community service as well. So.
Hi, Katie Meyer. I'm also with Commissioner Maps, she, her, and I think I bring a couple of different lenses. One, just being the commissioner's chief of staff. I worry about the city's budget a little bit, so I'm gonna keep an eye on, what we're being asked to do and how much money that might cost. Also, I was a small business owner for a long time, so I think about what are the impacts to small businesses. And then that leads me to also the residents that physically live there and what their experience day to day is going to be. So just making sure that both business and residents are represented and taken into account.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Frank Green. I am one of the assistant program administrators on the program, and I think very interested in hearing the ideas, concepts, and things that we discuss in this group. As we, continue to try to move the program forward through development and into, where we can implement a lot of the ideas, hopefully, which is construction and beyond. So interesting to see where the conversation can lead us and what we can implement.
I'm Jim. I'm the program manager for the general engineering consulting team. My pronouns are he, him. And my experience over the last 20 years particularly has been on projects like this and ways in which we can mitigate impacts during construction and accommodate some innovative things that really can contribute to the connections and healing of communities. I mean, I get a little bit philosophical. I think of bridges as like the Pope, the pontiff, right? Bridges connect people, not heaven and earth in this case, but communities. And I think there's wonderful opportunities to leverage infrastructure programs to do some very sensible and creative things that contribute much more to the communities than simply moving people, cars, trains, and such. And it's very exciting to be involved with this process.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the IBR program administrator. And the lens that I bring to this project, that's probably the only person who has more construction experience than I is the gentleman sitting next to me. So I bring 41 years of building things, but also 41 years of seeing how those things impact communities. And something as simple as adding sidewalk where there wasn't sidewalk before can change how a community accesses different places. So we have to look for those creative and innovative things in this group. And so that's the experience and the lens that I hope to bring. How can we be creative? We have a budget. Somebody is hollering at me. We don't have a budget to do everything that folks would desire, but in $6 billion, we can find to do some things that can help the community. We're looking for our partners to also bring resources to the table to help make this a holistic project.
I'm Corky Collier, Executive Director of the Columbia Corridor Association. I live in St. John's. My wife works at Park College. Actually, she teaches sign language, so it's great to see Jade up there.
Yeah.
Give you sign language. My day job is with Columbia Corridor Association, which is generally considered a business association. And, you know, I'm not going to argue with that assessment, but honestly, we represent a geographic area, which the bridge project is in. And that area includes thousands of homeowners. It includes the Columbia Slough running right down the middle of it. It includes 38% open space and natural areas. So I like to think that we're a little bit broader than just businesses, but we do also focus a lot on the workforce, which means my lens is very unfocused and all over the place. And this is really exciting. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because boy, this sounds like a lot of fun. So.
Remember that comment.
Yeah.
I will, okay.
Yeah. Also a lot of lenses, but I like to think of as many lenses rather than unfocused, but and I see a number of friends up there on the screen, so welcome everybody. Holly Williams, her, I've lived here since 1980. I moved here to be an engineer at HP. Subsequently, I've been a school director, an accountant, and volunteered in many organizations here. I think some of you on the screen can attest to that. Most recently, the ad hoc committee with the city of Vancouver I served on was the Main Street Advisory. I'm a resident of our NADA neighborhood, which is basically literally up the street. Also, I'm a lunch buddy in an elementary school that's on the other side of I-5, which will also be an impacted neighborhood. I'm Washington State Parks Commissioner, used to be on the Parks Advisory here, so I'm very interested in bike ped and parks, sort of green space and our ability to sort of preserve the nature that we have and make that accessible to all. And I will stop now.
That's great. Hi, Catherine Kelly. I'm policy advisor in the city of Vancouver. So working very closely with Marianne and city manager Eric Holmes here. I use she, her pronouns. And I think a lens that I can offer is thinking where the city has been historically, where it is today, and then what this does for the future and all those opportunities. And so that's the lens that I'm going to try to stick with as we move through this process.
Eric Holmes, city manager for the city of Vancouver, and we're aligned, right? Him, and I've been working in this community for more than 25 years, been with the city for more than 16, and in this role for 13. And really thinking about there was community here for millennia before it was colonized. There was a city here for decades before this bridge existed, the first one, right? The first bridge. And the city will be here for centuries following completion of this project. So really that lens of recognizing that this is a place of many cultures and many times, and it will continue to be a place like that. So how do we guide this investment, this unprecedented investment, in a way that serves all of those cultures, past, present, and future?
Ann McInerney-Ogle, mayor for the city of Vancouver. I shared some of that, but I'm also a resident of a neighborhood that is right up against the I-5 impact area for 43 years, family member. Commuter, I commuted across that bridge for 24 years to teach in Oregon. I'm an Oregonian by birth, Washingtonian by marriage. And
Me too.
but, yeah, but when we were talking about bridges, from heaven to earth, your backyard to our living room. So making that connection, we are one big region, and what impacts you will impact us and vice versa in our entire region, economically, transportation wise, the weather, the smoke, you name it. So we're looking forward to that.
Great. And hi, folks, my name is Mengus, he, him, the lenses I bring to this are multiple. Obviously, I bring a city of Portland lens to this, and I think within that capacity, I think about community voices, and there's a high levels of that, and there's a practical day-to-day level of that. You know, once we break ground, every day for about 10 years, we will piss somebody off. And those people who will probably trigger dozens of people every day. Those calls are going to come into City Hall, my office. They already do. Part of my job is to help mitigate some of that, or at least explain to people how we got here and why we're doing what we're doing. So I will bring that to the table. The other lens that I bring to this conversation is the perspective of public works. I mentioned before, I'm your PST guy. I'm also your water guy. I'm also your environmental services guy. So we spend an awful lot of time ripping up roads, digging ditches, putting in a big pipe, and then filling it over again. And as Greg was talking about, I very much know how that kind of very basic work can transform the lives of people. And this bridge will do the same. So I'm excited to be here. I will be wearing my public works hat, my City of Portland hat, and my community voices hat as we have this conversation.
Perfect, thank you. Shannon, I just want to do a couple of quick housekeeping items. As you all can see in the room, and then we'll jump to intros online. Because they can't see us as clearly every time we speak, we want to say our name. So that's why I said Shannon, and then continue to speak. And I think as much as we can in this room, because I know everybody's excited, but we want to keep side chatter down so that they can actually hear us as well. I've been on the other side and had a tough time tracking meetings. So with that, I will turn it over and ask Scott and then Darcy and Michael to introduce themselves, names, pronouns if you choose, and what lenses you're bringing to the conversation.
Thanks, everybody. Hi, my name is Scott McCullum. My pronouns are he, him. I am the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. It's both a state agency and a public school. So with that, I have the honor of serving on Governor Inslee's small agency cabinet. And I also happen to be appointed by Governor Kate Brown to serve as a commissioner on the Oregon Commission for the Blind board. So I guess I get to see both sides. I've spent my entire career working with youth who are blind or low vision as a teacher, as an orientation and mobility specialist, as a program leader in both Oregon and Washington. And so I guess I bring that lens of disability and access to the table. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Scott. Darcy, then Michael.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Darcy Hoffman. My pronouns are she, her. I am with Workforce Southwest Washington. We're the workforce board that serves Clark, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum counties in Washington. And I am here, I guess, just with the lens of the workforce and maybe more specifically, the thousands of workers and job seekers that the public workforce system serves each year that maybe hasn't had the opportunity to benefit from the types of really high quality, well-paying jobs that the IBR project will provide for people. And so that's the lens that I hope to bring to the group. And I'm sorry that I'm not there in person. If I was in town, I would be there having a good time with you all. Great to meet you.
Thanks. Next we'll have Michael, then Javier, then Peter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Strauss. My pronouns are he, him. I I am I run development for the Western US for Kimco Realty. Kimco owns the Jansen Beach Center. So we're on Hayden Island, have a big Target store, Home Depot, Best Buy, and lots of others. The lens that I'm bringing is representing the 40 plus some odd small and large businesses that are providing lots of services for folks on both sides of the bridge. And we're certainly in the shadow of the existing bridge, and will be vastly impacted by the construction and the new product. And we're huge supporters of transit, and especially the really all aspects of the bridge project. Thanks so much, and look forward to joining you all in person on the next or a future meeting.
Thanks, Michael. Javier and Peter.
Hi, Javier Navarro, he, him. And I'm with President right now of Southwest Washington LULAC, League of United Latino American Citizens. I'm also a business owner on the Fourth Plane Corridor, and I also serve on the Fourth Plane board. And so I just bring a vast majority. I've been in Vancouver, 25 years as a resident of Vancouver. Worked for Hewlett Packard. I heard someone else say, Holly, I think it was that you worked there before too. I did 20 years there. But just in general, just hopefully making sure the Hispanic community is heard, as well as all the business owners on the Fourth Plane Corridor that are going to be near and dear to the project of on the bridge.
Thank you, Javier. Peter, then Marcus, and then Ben.
Hi, I'm Peter Fells, he, him. I'm a Vancouver resident. I retired at the end of 2016 and decided that the most important thing was climate issues. So probably my main lens is checking in on how the IBR will affect climate, but also I'm a bicyclist, and although I have ridden my bicycle across the bridge, I hate it the way it is now. It's frightening. And I've walked across the bridge. It's also frightening. So one of my main concerns is to make sure that there are ways for those of us in Vancouver to get across the bridge safely and pleasantly.
Thank you. Marcus, then Ben.
Thank you, Shannon. My name is Marcus Mundy. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition of Communities of Color. I use he, him pronouns. And the lens I'm looking at is actually, like my commissioner, a community perspective, you know, and I do have a particular bent for culturally specific communities. But at the coalition, we are also very, very concerned with the environmental impacts of the bridge, and at least equally concerned with the economic opportunities that the bridge will provide for the communities, both that are building it and then that live there for the next 100 years afterwards. So we have a lot of angles because we represent a lot of organizations, but I'll be reflecting those in my comments and observations over the course of this group. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to the work.
Thank you, Marcus. Ben, then Jasmine.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Ben Jacobson, founder of Jacobson Salt here in Portland, Oregon, and on the Oregon coast. And I guess I'm seeing this meeting, this process through the lens of a small business owner and a design enthusiast. I lived in Denmark and Norway for about 5 years and have seen a lot of really, really beautiful pedestrian and bicycle and mass transit focused bridges, and would love to see something great done here. And I'm also representing my late mother's nonprofit Jane's Forum. Jane, my mom, started Confluence Project, and there's a little bridge that goes over Highway 14 in Vancouver there, among a few other sites. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Jasmine, then Emily.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jasmine Tolbert. I use she, her pronouns. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm honored to be here representing SWEC, the Southwest Washington Equity Coalition, as a board member. I've had the privilege of earning this role through my dedication to racial equity work in many different facets within Clark County and Southwest Washington. I currently served on the community advisory group for a little bit, representing NAACP Vancouver, because I am the immediate outgoing president for that organization. In my day job as an HR executive, I bring a lens of recognizing that people need healthy communities to thrive. And so I try to serve my employees best by also doing my job and serving the community as well, because their lives extend beyond the workplace. But for those that aren't aware a little bit about SWEC, I'll refer to it in its acronym. Our mission is our organization is dedicated to advancing racial equity by dismantling structural white supremacy and creating a transformational action and advocating for our community. We are firmly rooted in the principles of re-indigenization, Black liberation, and the emancipation of oppressed immigrants and ancestral Americans. We have a very clear vision. We just want to create safe communities where people of color and culture can thrive. And so I'm excited to represent this organization and in this space and just be in community with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Emily?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta. I am on the IBR equity team. So I bring a lens of real equity focus as well as advocacy and policy. On a personal note, I bring a lens of being the mother of a child with a severe disability. So I definitely have accessibility on the top of my mind. And then finally, a lens of just real excitement. I've been working with the team on community benefits when it started as a concept on a piece of paper. I'm so excited to see it starting to catch steam and to work with all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Kelly and then Ray.
Thanks. My name is Kelly Haynes. My pronouns are she, her, and I work for Work Systems, which is the local workforce board that serves Washington and Multnomah counties. So kind of a counterpart to what Darcy Hoffman does in Southwest Washington. And I come at this with a lens of quality jobs, given that our, what we do is really training and employment as an intermediary in the region. We really also prioritize ensuring that historically marginalized people have access to quality jobs. And I think this bridge offers a lot of that opportunity for the region. So my interest is definitely how can I serve this committee in helping to make those connections. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ray, I saw you were driving, so if you can't come off mute, that's fine, but I did want to give you opportunity to introduce yourself too. All right. Eric.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Trin. I am the communication manager at Captions Strategies. Great to be here, and I think that I want to learn from everybody and bring the perspective of immigrants.
This is the sign language interpreter. I'm unable to hear the voice in the room. Very sorry about that. And we're about to switch interpreters to Dana Redfield.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
You're like, I'm done. Okay, that was Eric. Apologies, that was Eric introducing himself. So if we could pull up the slides, we have to just do a little bit of backtracking and some housekeeping items for the slides real quick.
Shannon, did you want to take care of the 5 in the back?
I was not going to. I was thinking to committee members and staff to the committee.
But are they all IBRs?
They are.
No. I work with Kimco on the Jansen Beach project, and especially with Michael didn't mention it, but with an eye toward they have a master plan for redevelopment, so that it would be a very mixed use kind of development that could even include housing and open space. And
Sorry, I can't hear you. It's really quiet. Could you talk a little bit louder?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not with IBR, but very much support the IBR team. Let me say that, but mostly with Kimco.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Next slide, please. So just closed captioning, English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can use this link to view both English and Spanish closed captions in a separate browser window. Next slide. At the bottom and middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, then click the CC icon and a separate window with captions will appear. Next slide. In the effort to continue to center equity, there's an ASL interpreter in addition to the closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click their video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Next slide. There will be opportunity for public input around 3:45 in our agenda today. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or in the IBR CBAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once public comment period concludes. To comment by phone, please dial 1-646-931-3860. Enter meeting ID 986-0940-5983, passcode 701376. You'll dial *9 to raise your hand, and after you're invited to speak, you'll dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide, please. Greg did our welcome, but you're also going to then take us into some other work, so we can move into the next slide. I think we already did this one. Next slide, please.
So I'm going to jump in real quick. For those people in the room, we should have covered safety briefing before we started. But just want to quickly mention that, in the event of any kind of an emergency, whether it's, an earthquake or if the fire alarm goes off, we do have an evacuation plan here that's on the wall, but we're not going to ask everyone to get up and look at it. So that what we would do is we would leave this door, we would go out, probably leave the door that most everyone came in, that goes out to the parking garage, use the stairs on the parking garage, and then we congregate out here on 6th Avenue, trying to stay away from the building depending on what's going on. We have had, I think, at least one fire drill while we've been having folks in the office. If there is an earthquake, please try to drop, cover, and hold until the shaking stops. Those, near the windows, if you can, try to get away from them. That's, think about some of the hazards. So if people do need restrooms, if you're here, the restroom code's on the wall here, but it's also, you would go out to the reception area. You would turn left to where the elevators are, and the women's restroom, you continue to the elevators, turn left, and the men's restroom, you turn right as soon as you leave our office here. So just some housekeeping, being that we're hybrid, we're used to people who, work on the team being in the office, but some people maybe haven't been here, so.
Kids next door in the kitchen too.
Yeah, first aid kit, and some of those folks that are on the program will be responsible if we need a first aid kit or AED or anything like that.
Thank you so much. So brief overview of our agenda. We'll move into group agreements and then have a program overview, including some of the finance plan. We'll then spend time for Q&A and discussion. We'll then do a presentation about the CBAG and some of the framework and how we're really thinking about putting this body of work together. And again, time for discussion and questions. And then we'll go through next steps and have a brief snapshot of the plan, the work plan for you all advisory group members over the next 6 months. We'll have public comment if there is any, and then we'll move into a wrap up and closing. I just want to note, this is going to be a meeting that is more didactic than any other meeting you will experience moving forward. I don't love that we'll be talking at you a ton, but we want to start from the same baseline understanding of the program and this framework for this group. So I just want to acknowledge that. Next slide, please. Group agreements, please put relationships first, keep focused on our common goal. We're going to notice power dynamics in the room. We want to create space for multiple truths and norms. We want to be both kind and brave. We're going to practice examining racially biased systems and processes. Remember, this is a learning space for everyone and look for opportunities for learning. We ask folks as advisory group members to turn on cameras as you share the space together. Please take care of your personal needs as they come up. Let us know if you need to step away, that's perfectly fine. Participate by sharing your response in the chat, taking written notes, or by raising your hand if you're in the Zoom room. We welcome diverse perspectives. It is okay to disagree. And we ask you to move up and move up. If you tend to do a lot of talking, we ask you to move up your listening. If you tend to do a lot of listening, we ask you to move up your talking. And we will assume and have good intentions in this room together. Next slide. Just to share a brief overview, we plan to utilize modified consensus decision making in this room. I've been a part of a lot of advisory groups where people do this as listening, and then somebody says, oh, it's consensus. And we don't want to do that. So we want to be really intentional about decision making. So we will utilize modified consensus, really looking at an aim of acceptance by all. We want to ensure that we're including input of all of the advisory group members, as well as addressing any potential concerns. It really helps foster cohesion and interpersonal connection. And it also offers opportunities for active participation in that decision making. Next slide. So the modified consensus model that we'd like to use, and again, we'll come back and revisit this, just want to give you a brief overview. This is called the FIST 5. It's something I've used in many different advisory groups, bringing people from businesses to homeless advocates and homeless rights advocates to agree on the same plan, as well as across the state with the racial equity work, seeing folks with pretty divergent viewpoints be able to reach modified consensus using this model. So this is the model we'll bring into this group as well. Next slide. And just for CBAG members, if you are approached by news media, we do ask that you note the name and contact information of the journalist and name of the news outlet, and then provide the information to our public information officer, Kellyanne Amico. And we can send this out to you all as well, so you've got it just handy in your email. Next slide. And with that, I will hand it over to Greg.
All right. So this program has in this latest version has been going on for over 3 years. So we've accomplished a lot, hit a lot of milestones. So I want to get everybody on the same level of where we are at. So let's go to the next slide. So this slide shows our program area. We on the north end, we stop at SR 500. And on the south end, we stop at Interstate Boulevard, the interchange with I-5. So this is a 5-mile corridor with a very large bridge in the middle. So we are part of a vital regional, national, international trade route. And as Mayor Ann is quick to remind me, we see over $130 million a day in goods that go across this bridge. We are the only movable bridge on I-5 between Mexico and Canada. And I did a little more research. There are only 9 movable bridges on the entire interstate system across the United States. And most of those are on the three numbered interstates like 205 or 395. Most of these bridges are throwbacks. The Federal Highway Administration has been looking to get rid of movable spans on the interstate. You do not want stoplights on your major trade corridors. So one of the spans is over 100 years old. And for folks who, the gentleman who said he rode his bike across it, I refuse to ride my bike across it. I'm an avid bike rider, but I refuse to ride that bridge. But I have walked it over 40 times, and it is not a pleasant experience at all. So one of the major reasons we're here is that both of these spans are at risk of collapse if there is a major earthquake that hits this region. So we need to be focused to get this project done. We know right now it costs $1.2 million a year in annual cost to have operators sitting at that bridge round the clock, 365 days a year, which they have to be there by law to be able to lift that bridge as needed. If we do nothing, folks say, well, I don't do anything. If we do nothing, that is not a no-cost alternative. So we will have to replace the deck on one of the bridges and paint one of the bridges, which will be approximately $270 million if we don't do anything by 2040. So do nothing is not a no-cost alternative. So next slide, please. So once again, the governors of both states got together in 2019 and established the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. There are some folks who worked on this program when it was a Columbia River crossing and some folks who are intimately familiar with it. We would not be able to move as quickly as we are moving without the good work that was done by the Columbia River crossing team. So we are building upon information and legacy left to us by that group of folks. So we have some differences. This time we have a bi-state legislative committee that helps oversee the work that we're doing and was instrumental in getting funding commitments on both sides of the river for this program. So this is a joint ODOT and WashDOT enterprise. I am a representative of both DOTs equally. So my paycheck comes from ODOT, but I represent ODOT and WashDOT equivalent. I have two deputy program administrators, Frank, who is sitting right here, who is representing WashDOT, and Ray, maybe you didn't get a chance to hear from. Ray represents ODOT. So we have other partners. Metro in Oregon is the MPO. In Southwest Washington, it is RTC, the Regional Transportation Council. Primet is one of our strong partners, along with CTRAN, on everything that is transit related. So we have close meetings with those folks bi-weekly to talk about how we are going to do transit. We have both cities are partners on this, both City of Portland, City of Vancouver. This work could not move forward without the great support we have received from both communities to get this done. We also, the ports are a part and partner of this project. We know that they both have major facilities that will be impacted by the work we do. And they send vehicles every day across this bridge, helping to support the economy, not only locally and regionally, but nationally and internationally. So let's go to the next slide, please. So why are we here? What is the purpose of this project? So these 6 purpose and need statements actually were derived during the Columbia River Crossing project. And these 6 purpose and need statements still exist today, and they're only have been exacerbated by the passage of time. So safety is one of the key issues. We have narrow lanes, no shoulders, poor sight distance, and this location is the highest crash location or in the top for both states. We have impaired freight movements. Once again, with the ports being here, we have congestion every day that amounts to 10.5 hours of congestion in this 5-mile corridor. Once again, with $130 million worth of goods every day, the inefficiency that's created by safety and congestion problems makes businesses say, okay, is this where we want to be? Is this where we want to do business? So we want to take that off the table and make sure folks see this as a welcoming region with great transportation options. So congestion, we have over 143 vehicles per day that crossed in 2019. And of course, in 2020, we had the pandemic. We saw our traffic drop, but it is now back up in the 140,000 vehicles every day that cross this bridge. Once again, the 7 to 10 hours of congestion is closer to 10.5 hours of congestion. Earthquake vulnerability, we've talked about it. You do not want to rely on I-205 in this region as the only other viable option to cross the river in a metropolitan area that contains over 2.5 million people. So if the earthquake hits, we know that this bridge will probably not survive it. And that's gonna not only disrupt traffic on the freeway, but it will disrupt traffic on the river. So one of the other major things is we have inadequate bike and pedestrian paths. And I was happy to hear that we have a number of folks who do ride and walk. I walk to work every day. I ride my bike. I'm an avid bike rider. And having not only sufficient bike and pedestrian facilities, but things that encourage folks to get out of those single occupancy vehicle trips or to walk or ride is important to our team. And last, but certainly not least, we have limited public transportation. Right now, your only transit opportunity to cross this bridge is via express bus that C-Tran operates that goes to downtown Portland. But we know that that bus has to sit in the same traffic backups as everyone else. So we are looking to not only increase the way express bus crosses, but we are making a major investment in light rail to cross this river and to go from the Expo Center and end at Evergreen Street, which will be a hub for the city of Vancouver for transportation. So that's why this team is here. That's why we're here to solve these problems. But also what we need to know, and I think it's on the next slide. So let's go to the next slide. Yes. Equity and climate has been identified as by both of these partners as something that is key critical to this undertaking. We cannot just take the old ways of doing business and make that how we build this bridge. So we created an equity advisory group. You will hear the acronym EAG, and that speaks to our equity advisory group. We created a community advisory group so we can hear the voices amplified in the community. So we are focusing on these things. We are the only program in the nation, the only mega program that has a principal equity officer, Mr. John L. Bell. We have a principal climate officer, Ms. Mara Krinkle. So this is important to us. We are working with not only within our team, but within groups that sit outside of us to talk about how we can make this the most equitable project, how we can make this the most climate-friendly project moving forward. So once again, we're centering equity priority communities. If you ever visit our website, we have over 8 spoken languages and I think 12 written languages that we translate our information into. So we are making sure that we are reaching communities that have not been touched before by projects like this. We also are supporting the state climate goals of reduction in greenhouse gases and emissions and air quality improvement. We've been tabbed with the misnomer that this is a freeway expansion. So currently the existing bridge, 92% of the space on that bridge is dedicated to moving cars and trucks. The new bridge, that number will drop from 92 down to approximately 58%, with the remainder being express bus going on shoulders, pedestrian and bike facilities, and also light rail crossing. So this is a change from what folks have seen. So this while we are maintaining 3 through lanes, and we will be adding auxiliary lanes to help folks move smarter between interchanges, we are not adding through lane capacity on this project. Once again, we will be looking for this bridge to support sustainability going into the future. So not only will we try to make this resistant to the heat domes that we've been seeing, but also the rise in river levels based on sea level rise that we're seeing. We also want to make this a smart piece of infrastructure that can be adaptive to future needs and future technologies. So next slide, please. And I would be remiss, and I need to, my team reminds me, one of the smartest things we're doing, we have a bridge that's over the iconic Columbia River. And we have numerous species that inhabit this river. Right now, any drop of runoff rainwater hits that bridge deck and goes into the river without being treated. One of the things that we will do on this project is have an enclosed drainage system that will capture that water, take it to detention ponds where it will be treated and before it's released back into the river. And that's major for the health of the future health of the Columbia River and the species that inhabit it. But what you're seeing now is a representation of what this project is looking to accomplish. So that top slide is looking at from Marine Drive looking north. So you'll see Hayden Island in the middle. And there are numerous things that we have done to make this project more amenable to the community. One of the things that we heard was our footprint on Hayden Island is too expansive, it's too big. So we have worked with our engineers to create a partial interchange where we take the most traveled traffic patterns and accommodate them on Hayden Island. We are building a local access bridge. That's that light gray bridge on that top slide. And that will give the folks on Hayden Island an opportunity to reach Hayden Island without getting on the freeway. And that's one of the major things we heard also. But you can see this is going to be a complex set of constructions. We are going to reconstruct North Portland Harbor. That's different from the last go round. North Portland Harbor is the part of I-5 that goes from the south side of Hayden Island to mainland Portland. So before we were just going to rehabilitate that bridge, but that decision is now 15 years old and that bridge is 15 years older. So we are now looking to replace that as part of this project. Active transportation. We have worked with bicycle and pedestrian advocacy groups on both sides of the river to make presentations about what can we do smarter with pedestrian access. And they said, make something that will attract people to take this route and not do it by car. So we're gonna have facilities that will be up to modern standards to where we can get folks comfortably across this bridge, walking or biking. Transit, the light rail we've talked about, you see that yellow color, that is the extension of light rail from Expo Center across the bridge. And as you see on the bottom slide, that's you're in Vancouver looking south towards Hayden Island. That yellow color is the light rail line that will run along I-5 and terminate at Evergreen Street. The difference between what was proposed the last go round under CRC, we were going to be going through downtown streets with light rail. The city has developed tremendously since that time. So we are now taking light rail and running it in the I-5 corridor up to Evergreen. So that is one of the differences between this and the last program. But there are a lot of benefits that this program is going to bring to these communities that are just natural outcomes of the construction. We're gonna be talking about those, but also additional things that can be leveraged. So once again, we'll have an earthquake resilient corridor that improves safety, congestion, and reliability. Maximum benefits and minimum burdens for equity priority communities. This team is dedicated to making sure we explore all of the possibilities related to that. The improvement of freight movements and connections. As we get more and more people ordering things from Amazon, the need for freight movements is going to become even more critical going into the future. The transit options, once again, we're looking to get people out of their cars into cleaner modes. So reducing vehicle miles traveled. The way you do that is give people reasonable options to get out of those single occupancy vehicle trips. The jobs that are created will support the economic health and viability of both of these communities and the states also. And once again, the climate goals on each side of the river are supported by what we are doing here. So next slide, please. So this is our program schedule. Some people have taken to calling me the schedule czar, because every meeting that I have, I stress the importance of schedule, and not just for the sake of schedule, it's for the sake of cost. If we start missing deadlines, we start incurring more costs. And on this program, if we miss a year now, that year out in 2035 translates to $300 million with no value added. So this is our schedule to get to construction. And a lot of dots on there. We're in that green area, the environmental process. We're hoping to wrap that up in early 2025. And we hope to be having shovel in the ground by mid to late 2025. But one of the key things, and I don't know if it's shown on here, the bridge will be the first big project. This will be approximately 20 different projects. We did not want to make this one huge contract. We are breaking it into 20 different pieces so we can give a lot of different companies opportunities to work on this. But we are also, that big bridge project will probably, will have a contractor on board in 2025 with the intention of meeting an in-water work period in 2026. If we don't meet that in-water work period, we will lose a year of construction. And out in the future, that translates to $300 million. So you will hear me stress that continuously. So let's go to the next slide, please. So Frank is going to walk us through the cost estimation work that we did along with our financial plans. Frank.
Let's pause for 1 minute and see if there's any questions on Greg's section.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Back to the map.
Can we say, just set reminders to say your name and make sure you're speaking up so they can hear us online.
I am Katie Meyer with Commissioner Mapp's office. My question is just about access on and off of Hayden Island, because I don't quite understand by looking, like if someone is traveling down I-5, are they going to easily be able to get on it and off to Kimco and to the businesses like they are now?
Yes. So what we have basically done is to take the northbound movements to get to Hayden Island and off of Hayden Island going south. We've taken those and we've included those into the Marine Drive interchange. So if I am coming from downtown Portland, I want to get to Hayden Island, I will get off at the interchange at Marine Drive and end up on that light gray bridge and take that across to Hayden Island. If I am on Hayden Island and I want to go south, I will take that same bridge southbound and access the interchange to now get back on I-5 and go further south. If I am in Vancouver, I want to get to Hayden Island, there will be direct ramps onto Hayden Island. And if I am on Hayden Island, I want to go north, I will be able to take a direct ramp from Hayden Island going north. So there's reason why we chose those two ramp movements to put on the island. Number one, at this point, those are the predominant movements. And secondly, you can't build a local access bridge apart from the freeway across the river to get to Hayden Island. So this was something that we heard from the folks who live on the island. It's not a unanimous sentiment, but what we heard from the majority of folks we talked to was decomplicate the interchange on Hayden Island.
Thank you.
And I don't see any questions online. If that changes, y'all, please feel free to use your hand, raise your hand, virtual, real hand, or come off mute, and I'll keep checking for you. You can hand it over, thanks.
Thank you. Once again, Frank Green with the IBR program. We just wanted to give a quick update on the cost estimates for the program and some of the locations where we're looking for funding for that. So if you can go to the next slide, please. You know, as Greg had mentioned, as he walked through with the modified locally preferred alternative, we are looking to you know, make investments in the 5 mile corridor that goes from Interstate Boulevard in Oregon to SR 500 in Washington. The graphic that we show right now kind of breaks up the cost estimate into 4 kind of distinct kind of buckets. Overall, the cost estimate for the program is between $5 billion and $7.5 billion, with the most likely from the process we go through looking around about 6. So the estimate that we are targeting for funding is $6 billion. The process we use, you know, develops a cost estimate, you know, based on the investments and the designs we've done. And then it tries to model based on when in time we think we'll be able to build each piece of that, so that there is some inflation added to that. But we also go through a process of identifying what potential risks might we encounter, whether those are, you know, some of the delays in getting approvals or permits, whether it's trying to identify, you know, we know that costs of materials fluctuate, especially in today's environment. We know some of the materials are really fluctuating. So we try to bring all of those aspects into, you know, into consideration. We run a model, and the kind of the costs that we're showing here are the output of that model that we ran when we identified the modified locally preferred alternative. And so, you know, these 4 kind of distinct sections of the program. I'll start with what's shown up there in magenta or C. You know, that's really the bridge itself and the approaches. The reason I like to start there with explaining the program is, you know, that's in a cost range of between 1.6 and 2.45 billion. But really all elements of the program kind of build off of that. You know, once we're able to, you know, get the bridge and approaches constructed, we can also have transit and active transportation as well. And then you can really kind of build out from the bridge and the approaches with that. I'll highlight B second as I'm going through this. That's the transit investments that Greg mentioned, where we're looking to extend light rail for 1.9 miles from Expo across North Portland Harbor, you know, onto Hayden Island, and then across the river into downtown Vancouver. That does include multiple stations, where we'll be looking at 3 new station locations, 1 on Hayden Island, 1 at the waterfront, and then 1 at Evergreen, as well as, you know, other improvements to the surrounding area so that you can have access to those stations. And that cost is inclusive of the fact that, you know, it's on bridge structure for a good portion of the alignment there. And you can see that cost is somewhere between 1.3 and 1.99 or 2 billion. I'll round up. You know, if you look at the other 2 segments, those really represent some of the roadway and highway improvements that are happening kind of, you know, north of that touchdown point with the bridge and approach, or south. So A, and the darker blue really is showing the interchange and roadway work in Washington. So that is inclusive of really 4 interchanges that we're looking at putting investments in. with really the two northernmost ones are really just some improvements to address some safety and some operational concerns that are on the freeway there with closely spaced interchanges. On the Oregon side, you see D, which shows between 1 and 1.57 billion. That is really kind of showing that partial interchange that Greg just walked through with the details a little bit. The North Portland Harbor and some of the work that's going to go on there, as well as Marine Drive. You know, I would like to point out, you know, Greg had mentioned the ports of Vancouver and Portland. You know, primary connection points for both ports are Middle Plain, which is the first kind of dark blue after the pink on the north side or the upper part of the map, and Marine Drive for the port of Portland. But really, Marine Drive serves more than just the Port of Portland. I think, as we all know, the Columbia Corridor and a lot of the industrial connection points to I-5 happen in that location. So as I mentioned, kind of pulling this all together, this is really a way to kind of break down what our cost estimates were showing. And so if you can go to the next slide, you know, next slide. Okay, so this, you know, we don't want to really show that what our cost estimates are without being able to identify, you know, some of the sources that we're looking at in order to be able to fund the program. And, you know, as was said a little bit earlier by Greg, the program had been given some existing funding to be able to do the work we're doing right now, getting through the environmental document. So 2 sessions ago, the Washington legislature took the initiative to move forward a pretty sizable package with the Move Ahead Washington program, and in that package was $1 billion identified for this program. And you know, I guess I'll say, if you followed the last program, I think that was a very important step for the program, because Washington knew that they had to take that step of providing some state funding to really show that you know, there's a commitment there. That, I think, really helped us lead to the next part of the table here, which was on the Oregon side and the Oregon legislative session this last year. Oregon also committed an equal amount, so $1 billion to the program. And so, you know, really, the program, that alone really puts the program in a place that we've never been, having that kind of really strong commitment from the legislatures to fund the program. But another key piece of the the finance plan is tolling. We know that tolling is something that big programs like this nationwide are needing to look at to help funding. And we show committed with a little bullet there, because in this latest legislative session on the Washington side, authorization was given by our legislature. So now both states have provided $1 billion in dedicated funding, as well as authorization for tolling. And so, you know, that's as you can look, that's providing roughly, you know, almost $3.5 billion with all the other dedicated funds that we have, which really, I think, helps us for the next piece that I'll talk about, which was some of our federal programs that we're targeting for funding. The first is our capital improvement grant from FTA with the transit extension that we are proposing. We submitted a letter to our federal transit partners, letting them know that this program is going to be pursuing funds from them. As we show on this chart, you know, you start targeting, you know, around $1 billion from them. We received an acceptance from the FTA earlier this month that allows us into that process. Now, that is if you're not aware, it's a fairly detailed process where you have to develop your program through multiple different steps till you can get to that grant agreement perspective. But being accepted into project development, I think, is a huge step in that right direction for the program. And the steps really are just the program needing to continually show them that we can keep moving down that process. And so, you know, good news there. And then the last thing on the list here are two grants that were part of the IIJA package that the federal government passed a few years ago. One is one that's called the MEGA grant. The program submitted for that MEGA grant last month, about a month ago. We had targeted somewhere between $500 and $600 million with that grant. We feel with some of the recent things that have happened with the support from state and local that you know, will be very competitive, because this is a unique program nationally, because we aren't just looking to replace a bridge that is for highway, but we're also bringing in that multimodal with transit and active transportation that really, with the criteria, that makes us pretty competitive. The other part of that $1.5 billion is a second grant that, funny enough, the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, just came out today. It is the Bridge Investment Program, and the IBR right now will be targeting, you know, somewhere between 1 and 1.2 billion from that program. So there's people you don't see in other parts of the program here who are running fast, trying to say, okay, we've got, you know, basically 60 days to prepare that application. It's due the Monday after Thanksgiving. So you know, a lot going on there, but you know, I've said this before, that this is the sources that we're currently you know, targeting to help us get to that most likely funding level of 6 billion. The program is going to continue to do whatever we can to, I've said, look under every rock, pick up couch cushions to find funding that'll help us move this program forward. Do I have one more slide? I think I have one more slide. And so, you know, kind of pulling all this together with this group, you know, we've said this, that you know, this program has the opportunity to really make a strong positive benefit to the community here when it comes to, you know, jobs directly as part of this program. You know, those sources, those three sources I just mentioned, the federal funds, if not for this program, those federal funds may not come to this region. And so how do we maximize those federal funds coming to this region, you know, to create good jobs for, you know, what will be probably longer than most people want, which is the duration of construction. But I heard 10 years earlier. I've heard the mayor say a number before, but we less than. And I think I said there might be a 5 in it, but we'll figure that out. So, you know, I think as you can see here, there's really a good opportunity to provide a huge economic benefit to this region, and that's in jobs, but also in just the activity that's going to go on with construction here. So
This is a sign language interpreter. Could we switch the highlight to the other sign language interpreter, please? Oh, perfect.
Okay, well, I think that was my last slide.
Absolutely. Any questions from advisory group members?
It's probably, might be too early to ask this question, but given that construction starts in, let's just call it 2 years, it actually isn't too early. So we're talking about community benefits and the jobs. Putting my former school director's hat on, are there plans to have the, you know, the kinds of construction jobs that are required here? I'm guessing some of it, a little bit is covered in Clark College's welding program, but that's just one part of what's needed. And a lot of construction that's happening here now is residential. It's really different kind of work is I think, if I'm stating that correctly. So what is our plan, particularly with respect to youth that don't have a family member that's in one of those unions, to make these job opportunities, to make sure that as they're graduating from high school now, that maybe this isn't the right meeting, but that's something I'd like to know about.
No, actually, this is the right. We will be talking about workforce. How do we reach into communities who may not know about this project? So yesterday I was down in Klamath talking to the building trades at their biannual meeting to talk about exactly that. How do we get folks in the pipeline now for this 8 to 10 year build out of things? So this is very vital to this conversation. We have workforce groups who are part of this team who are working on a report to tell us what the delta is between the existing and the projected workforce and the existing needs and the projected needs out into the future. So we will be talking about workforce issues.
Great question.
If I can take 1 minute of administrator privilege, there's an issue that is out there, and I do want to put it on the table for folks to understand. we have a lot of advocates who have a lot of ideas. And one of the ideas is, well, forget building a bridge, build a tunnel. We have gone through, we have investigated it, and we own a mistake that we made. We had an oversight in how much excavation would be needed in the river. So we went back and corrected that. But to build a tunnel would be almost twice as expensive as building a bridge. And you still don't solve a number of problems. You miss interchanges on Hayden Island, you miss interchanges at SR 14 without ripping out half of Fort Vancouver to do it. So we are not going to litigate that issue in this committee. That issue is decided. We will keep providing information on what we have done to put that issue to bed, but we don't want to litigate that issue.
Thank you. This is Shannon, and I think, Greg, you speak to exactly what we want folks to have some agreement in this room on things like that, as well as we're really all here to bring the lenses that we shared earlier and all work towards solutions. So it's agreeing to disagree in some spaces, but it's also why we'll do some more workshopping of recommendations. That'll be the majority of your work moving forward. I do want to move into our presentation about the community benefits. So I will hand it over to Emily, who will take us through the first set of slides.
Great, thank you, Shannon. So we're going to shift gears here, and before we really dive into this work, we wanted to make sure that we touch on the framing for how we're looking at community benefits. There's a lot of different definitions of equity, of community benefits. So we want to be really clear at where we're coming from and make sure that we're all on the same page here. So as Greg mentioned, the IBR program has made a commitment to centering equity in its work. So the equity framework was created by the program to really establish a foundation and a roadmap for what does equity look like on this type of a project. So 4 of the kind of key aspects of the equity framework, as you see here, are the program's definition of equity. As I mentioned, there's several different definitions of what equity means, and it really becomes meaningless if there's not a shared understanding of what that definition is. So in the context of IBR, we look at equity as both process and outcome equity. So it's not just looking at effects after the fact and mitigations, but how can we really embed equity throughout the process and decision making to ensure that the outcomes do end up much better for our equity priority communities. The other key aspects of the framework are the equity objectives. So what are we hoping to achieve in this work specific to equity and considering the equity priority communities? And the next slide, we will outline what those are. The other aspect is the measures of success. So what will success look like? How will we know that we've achieved what we wanted to? As part of this, we're developing key performance indicators that are specific to equity to really help us assess and track progress made towards the objectives that we lay out in the framework. And then finally, how does equity get put into action? How does it go from a concept to something more tangible? So some of the ways that we've conceptualized this is through our community engagement work or the intersections between design and equity and some of those assessments that have been made. Also things like construction specifications and mitigations. And so here are our equity objectives that are outlined in the framework. And when we were starting to approach this work, we really see community benefits as a huge opportunity to implement equity and really demonstrate it to the communities. So we felt like it was a natural fit to conceptualize the different types of community benefits that could possibly be included as aligning with these equity objectives that I'll read in just a minute. So how we're really thinking of this is the benefits being categorized according to these equity objectives. So those objectives include mobility and accessibility, physical design, community benefits, meaning opportunities for local community improvements on top of just required mitigations. Also that key one that we just discussed, workforce equity and economic opportunity, decision-making processes. So how are we including equity priority communities in the decision-making processes and making sure that those voices are heard, as they are often left out of these type of projects. And then finally, avoiding further harm. So that's including mitigations and ensuring that those who have typically borne the brunt negatively from major infrastructure projects are not further experiencing harm as a result. So we want to be very clear on what we mean when we talk about community benefits. As I said, when I dove into this research, there is a lot of different terms and folks kind of use them interchangeably with community benefits, project labor agreements. So what we really wanted to do was make sure we're all working from the same understanding. So our expectation is that community benefits for the IBR program will be developed with extensive community involvement, that they will establish a range of recommended potential benefits for the local community, again, reflecting our equity framework objectives, as well as the diverse needs and perspectives of the community and those in the program area. This, as I mentioned, is a key way that we see the program implementing its commitment to equity. And then we also see community benefits potentially showing up in things like contract specifications, environmental documents, potentially a community workforce agreement, et cetera. And then, apologies here. And then we also see this as a cooperative agreement or a shared responsibility between program partners and other local key stakeholders. So what community benefits will not be is a specific agreement or legally binding agreement that's only addressing community benefits. It will also not be a project labor agreement or community workforce agreement. And we will show you in the next slide here how we're differentiating the two. So as I mentioned, their community benefits agreements and community workforce agreements, those terms are often used interchangeably, but their structures are pretty different. And so we created this graphic to really outline how we're kind of seeing the different buckets here and differentiating the two. So under this blue bubble on the left are examples of what potential community benefits could include. So that could be construction mitigations, community spaces, community centers, support for affordable housing development. And then this green oval that you see are elements that sometimes are included in community workforce agreements, but other times they're not. And they could potentially fall under the umbrella of community benefits, but they are things that would support the labor agreement. So these are things like targeted hiring programs, job training programs, childcare assistance for workers, transportation subsidies, et cetera. And then here on the right is our bubble for our community workforce agreements or project labor agreements. These are really those standard legally binding negotiated agreements that have really these typical elements of defining wages and benefits, non-discrimination clauses, how to deal with any labor issues that come up, dispute and grievance processes, and then, as I mentioned, sometimes they include things like targeted hiring, mentorship and training programs, and DBE exemptions. I will stop there in case there are any questions before I turn it back over to Shannon.
I think, could you go back to what might be slide 26 or 20? No, go forward one. Okay, is this in all of the material that was sent to us?
The slides we can send out after, so you'll have all of those. This was not explicitly in or named separately in any of the materials.
Okay, I would appreciate it if anything that you're presenting here. My old eye contacts are just not catching everything.
Absolutely.
But could we have it at least 2 or 3 days prior to every meeting so that we can go through and educate ourselves so that we come prepared to ask questions?
Absolutely.
Bless your heart. Thank you.
And this is one that you both have seen though before, so it is something that isn't new for you, but yes, materials will come before the meeting.
Right, and we have individuals who are here with us today who have never seen this. Right, good, okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So we'll spend just a couple of minutes here. I'm going to go fast because I'm going to make up time. The Philly girl who talks fast gets to make up time at the end.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Jasmine. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries at all. Balancing two rooms is not the easiest task sometimes. I just had, so I really appreciated the pieces that you talked about, like the overall goals and whatnot, and trying to incorporate equity as much as possible throughout this process. But I just am wondering if maybe not this go around, but next go around, we can get a little bit more information about how you plan to measure those goals throughout the process. Because while we're putting, it sounds like a lot of these things are going to be upfront intentions. I do want to ensure that there's a way that we're measuring it along the way. So, and then also making sure that there's flexibility within the processes that hey, we're measuring this, it's not really turning out to what we wanted it to look like, and being able to change course.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Next slide. So the community benefits may include these categories, just another visualization of these buckets. There's plans and mitigations that are already included in the program. There's program partner conditions. There's potential partner agency contributions, as well as additional benefits that will be identified through this group in particular. Next slide. So your advisory group, this is all in the charter, but we did want to make sure just to go over a couple of pieces here. I'm not going to read the whole slide, but I think the important piece is what the scope is, what will you all be doing. So we will utilize the community values and principles developed by the community advisory group to help form our recommendations. As you saw, we as staff will help connect recommendations coming from this group into those specific equity framework principles. You'll be advising the program on how to leverage partnerships to receive the greatest impact, as well as the program investments, the greatest impact for our communities. We'll explore benefits that align with our equity objectives, and you will advise the program on establishment of those accountability mechanisms. And I think exactly, Jasmine, what you were speaking to. Next slide. So the structure, one note I do want to make, we have some additional representation that will be joining us. We'll be working with our EAG and our CAG to solicit applications and have representation from them on this committee. We have a few other folks that we're still working on confirming. So there will be, we have Victor from Housing Development, for example, from Washington. We haven't gotten quite yet our Oregon representative there, but we've got a few folks that we're talking to now. Additionally, I wanted to highlight that this committee will be one where we have an ODOT and a WSDOT representative on the committee. I think they weren't able to be here today due to a meeting conflict, but they will be here moving forward. I think we wanted to ensure that you all know that they'll be here, and part of their role, we'll have them there a little bit more as well. But part of their role is really to make sure that we're staying connected with the DOTs, and that the work that we're doing, they're very well read into as this is all moving forward.
And if I can add on, so Carly Francis and Ryan Winsheimer, these are the folks that oversee the regions in which this project sits on both sides of the river. And they are the folks responsible for long-term implementation of things. So they are critically important to have at the table so they can make sure that commitments that we make that get approved by ESG are implemented by the right part. So.
Next slide. So our meetings, we will be looking to meet at least monthly, starting now through potentially through March. I've left some wiggle room at the end of your work plan in case we need some more time. So if we can sunset a little bit earlier, we will. The meetings will be 2 hours. We'll continue in this hybrid mode. The mayor and commissioner have generously offered to rotate hosting on either side of the river. So we'll share those details as they come together. And we want to ask members to make every attempt to attend all of our meetings. Next slide. So the commitment, in addition to the piece that Greg shared earlier, if there's some things we're not going to revisit in this room, like the tunnel option, we also are asking for adherence to our group norms, to attending the meetings, to relying on the program's equity framework to guide our process, to really work collaboratively and in good faith with each other, to show up to meetings having reviewed materials when they're provided ahead of time, and notice the power dynamics in the room by staying aware of your privilege and the amount of airtime that you might consume. Next slide. And this is just a visualization. This has been updated on the website as well. This advisory group is in that same bucket as other advisory groups. This is not meant to be how everything always flows all the time, but it's to show that advisory groups are informing ESG, are informing the program administrator. There's two-way communication in these different places, and then up through the bi-state legislative committee as well. Next slide. So I'll pause there and see if there's any additional questions about the CBAG, and also we'll ask Brent and Salome if we have anyone for public comment tonight.
We do not have anyone signed up for public comment.
Thank you. Great. Seeing none, let's move into the what's next. So we wanted to give you all a snapshot. We're going to start going through these community benefits, and the majority of your time again will be spent in small groups having conversations. We've worked with program leadership to brainstorm some potential community benefits. We'll share those with you, so it's just to kind of spark a conversation and be able to start thinking about what's missing, who's missing, how do we start to refine these, and then we'll move through prioritization of those in some different categories. So we'll start next month with looking at a set of framework elements. We'll do some visioning around community benefits in November. And then in December, and that gives us some time as staff to do the work in between. Y'all are going to say a bunch of stuff. We're going to take all this stuff, and then we're going to go work it. And then the next meeting, we'll come back to you in December with updates on that so we can build on. We do want to have a first bucket of recommendations that we're making decisions on in January. So we will try to drive towards that timeline and make sure you have the information you need to be able to make informed decisions. But that is our goal, to hit that in January. It won't be all of them, just one bucket. And then we'll start to move into the next step. So we'll talk about mobility and accessibility in February, the community benefits sections in March, and we'll continue to rotate through those topics with you all, again, to give you time to talk about it, and then us to go do the work as staff to figure out what else we need to add to that recommendation and ground truth it. I want to pause there because that was a lot and fast. So does anyone have thoughts, comments, feedback, or questions for committee members?
Just a comment. I think prior to this, Emily had done a great job of scanning nationally of some of the work that has been done under the banner of community benefits in other communities. So that's one of the things we'll hopefully be sharing with you to see what others have done. Now, all of it won't be applicable to this project, but it'll give you an idea of some of the creativity and innovative things that have been done.
I have Kelly in the Zoom room, and then we'll come back over here to Eric.
Thanks, and thanks for this information. I would just want to request that we ensure within the timeline, the ability for us to go back and get input from other stakeholders within our realm, so that we can come with the best participation and help to communicate back what we So as long as I just want to name, I would request that we have enough time to be able to do that, to then come back to this group with robust input from more than just me, but like a broader group if possible.
Yes, this is Shannon. Thank you, Kelly. That's exactly where we'd like folks to be able to go. So thank you for raising that.
Eric Holmes, City of Vancouver. Couple of process questions and maybe an observation. One is, this is maybe the first 6 months worth of what we heard Greg say is a year's worth of work. And I think we all know that there is a draft EIS that will be published as a critical process step, leading ultimately to a record of decision about a year from now. Ish, heavy on the ish. So the question is, how does this relate to the DEIS work? And ultimately, how will the work of this group be folded into either the record of decision or whatever the appropriate memorialization of it is, so that we assure it actually gets done?
Absolutely. It's a great question. This is Shannon. We're working with the technical team as well on those timelines. So they'll look at recommendations that come from this group, identify ones that could be in environmental documents, and we'll continue to prioritize those as that first bucket that we want to get to decision on in that January timeframe. That's the deadline that the tech team has given us for having input so that they can incorporate anything needed for environmental documents for that record of decision.
So just a clarification, it does not have, if we make decisions that we do want to embed in the environmental document, it doesn't have to be in the draft supplement. It can appear in that final supplemental EIS record of decision.
So that what I hear from that is there is an outside bookend on this work.
Yes.
That requires it to be done to be in time to be memorialized in the final EIS and record of decision.
Yes.
Which you made a face when I said about a year from now. Ish, heavy on the ish, right? But back to your observation earlier about schedule and budget, it can't be too ish.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be, there has to be some discipline around delivering that final record of decision, which informs discipline about doing this work.
That is very true.
And then another process.
Absolutely, and if I could, this is Shannon. Not everything that you all do will be an environmental document. Some may be in contract specifications, and we're working with the procurement team on those timelines. Some may be in other places, but yes, to your point on the things that will be or should be in the environmental documents, we'll those timelines.
So a request from kind of accountability to our constituencies and the community as a whole, as we're going along, it would be helpful to categorize which elements will be more memorialized where and how they will ultimately be delivered in an enforceable, accountable way.
Absolutely. It's like you're reading my notes.
So another kind of process question, looking at the equity framework that you walked through here, we've actually published a little more than a year ago. There's the kind of community engagement diagram in there. But the question is any other, there's a bunch of advisory groups, right? Are any other advisory groups engaging in work that is redundant or duplicative of what this group is being asked to do?
This is Shannon, and please feel free to chime in as well. I think no. Our intention is to also be bringing what you all do to those groups so that they're seeing it and also providing input and feedback. But that's part of the role of the soon-to-be CAG and EAG members, and then our 2 ESG members are also acting as those liaisons to that body. But Greg, if you wanted to add.
So we knew that there would, at one point, we considered making this advisory group a subgroup of the community or of the community advisory group, but then you get a lot of messy dynamics. So we decided to make this a standalone side-by-side group with the other advisory group. So we don't have this reporting up to another advisory group, then reporting up to ESG. So this was a cleaner way to identify some specific topics. Will there be a bleeding over, a blending of issues? There could be. But we're gonna try and keep it very clean between what this advisory group is doing, what EAG is doing, and what CAG is doing.
Greg, can I just build off that real quickly? This is Mengus. So what's the difference between the community advisory group and the community benefits advisory group? Intuitively, it's not obvious to me where the boundaries between those jurisdictions are gonna fall.
So in the thinking of our team, the charter of the community advisory group is to hear any issue that's out there regarding whether it's design, whether it's how we're interacting with the communities. The charge of this group is very focused on how we can leverage investments to make this fit into the context that the community wants to see. So this is a very, I would say, focused group, whereas community advisory takes in the whole gamut of things that we want to hear from the community that impacts all elements of this project, not just the specifics that we're talking about.
Thank you. And we do have somebody who's waiting patiently online, so I do want to ask folks to raise hands in the room too. Peter, go ahead.
Thank you. Listening to everything, it occurs to me that the area that's going to be covered, that is covered by the bridge replacement, houses currently a large number of homeless people. And I think that's because there's vacant land along the Department of Transportation corridors. But I don't see any representation of or for homeless people in this group. And I'm wondering if thoughts have been given to A, having some representation, and B, how are we going to replace those locations for the homeless people? Where are they going to go during construction and afterwards?
Thanks, Peter. This is Shannon. I think that's really helpful feedback that we may not have a good answer to today, but that we can take back. It's definitely a topic that has come up in multiple spaces on the program. And we will continue to have that conversation, both with what are we doing with potential displacement of folks where they're sleeping now, but also the conversation that you all will have about disposal of surplus land and or development of affordable housing, and how can we make some links there for people. So both immediate today, microcosm, as well as larger picture. But you are right, there's nobody's currently specifically representing just homeless services. And we can have more conversation about that as a staff and get back to you all.
Thank you.
So one thing I do want to mention, we've had, we do monthly lunch and learns to sensitize and acclimate our team to a number of issues that are. We've had houseless advocates come and talk to our team about how we can be partners and how we can be more effective in impacting the issues related to houselessness in these communities. So we hear it, we know that we're not going to be the ultimate solution, but we know that we can be a partner in moving some folks from a houseless condition to some stability. And it may be in providing job opportunities. It may be something as simple as reaching to that community and saying, here, we can put you into a pre-apprenticeship program and move you from this instability. So it is something that our team has talked about and will continue to have conversation around. And when good ideas are put on the table for us, how we can do things smarter and better, we're open to those ideas.
Thank you, Greg. Any other committee members? All right. All right, I'm gonna give you one more.
Yeah, sure. It's not a question. It's more just an observation. As Vancouver folks were reviewing the materials in advance in preparation for today, we really recognize that there's some real inherent ambiguity in this, and are coming to it with recognize there's ambiguity, and do some trust in the process, and try and stay engaged as we navigate through this, so.
Wonderful.
I mean, you do what you talk about.
Yeah.
$6 million project, what do you need?
They're just like a crystal ball, they're all starting becoming clear.
Some days it feels like hugging a clown.
Next slide, please.
Thanksgiving.
So just a quick snapshot of what's next. We do have community advisory group on October 12th. The equity advisory group will meet on the 16th. We're working with the staff for those two committees as well to do a presentation for those bodies on the work of this group. And then your next meeting will be October 26th, 9:30 to 11:30. We did land on our new standing meeting time, and so we'll get the logistics of the physical location for that out to everybody in the coming days. Yes, Holly.
Along that line, the fourth Thursday in November is Thanksgiving. And so do we have dates for November, December?
Don't want to share. I mean, I make a really.
I am sure.
Yes, we will adjust our dates for November, December due to holidays. So we'll get those adjusted dates out to y'all.
Yeah.
All
All the holidays. All right, any closing words, Greg, Frank, or Ray?
Okay. Let's take an opportunity to let Ray introduce himself.
Yeah, there you go.
Trying to sneak in and not let anybody see.
That's so nice.
Just for you all. And the legislature. Nice to meet you all. Ray Maybe, Assistant Administrator, as Greg mentioned earlier. I was listening on the way in. Excited to get this group kicked off and work. I think one of the things everybody was answering is the lens that you come with, and for me, the lens was one of listening and hearing and see what this great group brings. Really excited about it. And thank you for participating in this.
Once again, this is the first meeting of many. We got important things to do. So once again, thank you for your time and commitment to making this project happen.
And Mingus here, just on behalf of the Portland folks in this room, I just want to thank Mayor Ann again for being such an amazing host. And I want to thank staff with the IBR project for all the incredible preparation they've done. And for everyone who's participating in this group, whether you're a committee member or someone who's just listening at home, I think this is the beginning of a very important conversation that will help us get, the Portland metro area, the Portland/Vancouver metro area. Our next great infrastructure project.
Yes, we will.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
I didn't want to throw this.